A lot of talking about offers that are coming in right now in this hot market where people are either waiving appraisals or they're really switching up language that may leave them a little bit more exposed than they should, but they're winning offers. So what do you suggest in regards to appraisal language on the purchase and sales?
The question is whether or not to make the purchase subject to an appraisal. And there's pros and cons, and I think of course the savvy buyer, and you have to be careful with this. I think careful in terms of the buyer's perspective and also the agent's perspective. What do you get your party involved in if you waive your rights to that value? Well, the point is really the purchase price is a certain dollar amount, and then the lender will approve your purchase based upon a loan amount, which you've predetermined, in preliminary discussions like with Matt, or your lender. And the question then is, if I make my purchase not subject to the appraisal, what does that really mean? Well, it exposes you to the difference between what the lender or the lender's appraiser appraises that property out at and that purchase price. It doesn't add to the purchase price. It just really subtracts loan dollars from, potentially loan dollars from your purchase. There's a way to potentially limit that exposure by saying, look, the buyer's willing to pay, or the buyer should say the buyer is going to purchase the property not subject to appraisal, but you could say something to the effect that the buyer is willing to come up with a difference to cover the appraisal deficiency by $5,000, by $7,000, by whatever the amount is that the buyer feels comfortable with. And so if it goes beyond that number, in other words, the appraisal comes in at, let's say, 10,000 less, but you've had that language in there written up to, let's say, a $7,000 deficiency, well, then you can have that conversation and have a negotiation at that time. Maybe your buyer has extra money, maybe it's a $5,000, $7,000 deficiency. In other words, the property appraises out for $5,000 to $7,000 less. Well, if the buyer has those funds, great. If they don't, then it does create a situation because you've made this purchase not subject to the property appraising out at or above the purchase price. So, it's important to have that conversation with the buyer before, this term is written into the purchase and sales agreement to determine, okay, this is what we're doing to try to be competitive. And this is what it could result. At the end of the day, the real conversation is going to be like, so you might pay a little bit more for that purchase, but is that going to be so out of whack with the rest of the homes in this community to the point where you feel like, oh my God, I probably paid too much money for this house? Probably not, because I guess it depends on the intentions behind purchasing the property. If the intention behind purchasing the property was a short-term thing, a flip, then maybe that is a consideration, that you should weigh, a little bit more seriously. But if it's a single-family home that you intend to occupy as your primary residence, and whether it's a little bit more than what the market bears at the moment, shouldn't be a drastic factor in deciding whether or not you should proceed.